Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm Claire Jones. I'm an author and small publisher committed to creating a better world through inclusive stories and practices. We are jumping on today for my Authorvision Facebook Live series, where I interview the amazing and inspiring authors in my network to discuss the personal visions that have shaped our lives and careers. If you're joining us, please like, comment, share below. Let us know that you're here. And today I'm talking to Carrie. Yay! So glad to have you.
Hi, so glad to be here.
Yes, I think we're going to have a great discussion today. So let's jump right on in. Tell me your backstory. How did you get to where you are today?
So I am I'm Dr. Carrie, and I'm fondly known as the sensible psychologist. And the reason that people call me that is because my whole mission is to help people figure out how to make this life enjoyable, right? I
Mm,
figure I don't have any evidence to the contrary. I think we only get one run around the sun, right? And so, like, might as well make it as enjoyable as possible. And in last 22 years, I've been a psychologist in private practice, specializing in treating anxiety and trauma.
mm,
And one of the coolest things about my job is I get to help people go from coming in and really feeling like life is kicking them around to departing feeling like they have some more agency in life.
mm,
And I'm always going to be the like pro agency, pro empowerment. Uh, but that notion of feeling good, even if life isn't perfect, is kind of my life's work.
yeah, I mean, that's so important. We need the feel good in the day to day. It's not like a delayed gratification kind of thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's not when you lose 10 pounds or find the perfect boyfriend or find the perfect girlfriend or ditch the terrible boyfriend, or your kids leave the house or you have a kid, or it's actually right now, right? Yeah,
Because it's the day to day minutes, the day to day hours that make up our experience at the end of
correct.
the day,
Yes.
right? So, why were you drawn to this kind of work?
It was super interesting. I figured out I am a weirdo. And
Welcome. We are a place of weirdos
like,
here.
this is good. I figured out when I was 14 that I wanted to help people. So when I was younger, horses literally were the axis of my earth. They were what my world oriented around. And I was volunteering with a therapeutic horseback riding program
Mm,
and working with severely disabled kids.
mm,
And one of our kids, who was one of my very favorite kids that we worked with, he was totally nonverbal.
mm,
Smile, he could laugh, he could show you when he was having a good time. And he would come in to the arena and we'd get him out of his wheelchair and onto the horse, and his whole being lit up, right? He was awesome.
mm,
And it felt so good to be able to help him. And it felt so good to be able to figure out ways to communicate with him. And it was just really super special. And then one day he had a seizure on the horse.
wow.
And there, horseback riding, you have one person at the front of the horse leading, and then you have what are called sidewalkers. So there's someone on either side of the client that you're helping, and you literally have your hands sort of like on them or right next to them.
Mhm.
So he had a seizure on the horse, and it was just so scary,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And it felt like, I don't exactly know what it was about that experience, but it just like dug me to like, my job in this world is to help people who have a hard time helping themselves.
Mm,
And I want to help myself, and I want to help my friends, and I also want to help, and I want to help people I haven't even met yet. So
mm,
there was something in that experience that just totally solidified, this is what I'm doing.
mm,
And in that moment, I'm not sure how I figured this out. I think this is like the two jobs that I knew because I was 14. And I would either become a psychologist or I'd become a social justice lawyer, and I would do one of those two things. And then I went to school and thought I was going to be a lawyer, and graduated and worked in a law firm. And I was like, this
mm.
is horrible work. No offense to the attorneys out there, but it was not a good fit for me. Um, and so I switched over and went the psychology route.
Mm. I love that. I mean, it's funny that you brought that up because I literally posted the other day about how I almost went to law school for art law.
Yeah.
And every lawyer and law student that I spoke to while I was going through the like LSAT application, all of that stuff process, they were like, don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah. Yeah, I feel so bad, right? Like I know some friends, I have some friends who are lawyers, and if they like their work, they really do like it.
Yeah.
But it's more complicated of a job, I think, than a lot of jobs.
And I think what underlines both of those career sets that you were talking about, both psychology and law, is especially social justice law, is advocacy.
Yes.
So, like, how has advocacy shaped this path of yours along the way?
Well, it's really interesting because that has always been something that's been important for me. But one of the things that we know from the psychology research is when we are advocating for other people and we don't have their buy-in, it
Mm,
doesn't go very far and it doesn't go very well. Charity
mm,
actually is not nearly as helpful as education.
mm.
So one of the things that I've worked a ton with in my practice, and especially in the last few years when it feels like we're sort of in victim and outrage mode in general in our culture right now.
Mm.
Um, and the interesting thing about victim mode is it keeps you stuck, right? Like
Yeah,
everything's happening to me. I have no choices. Look how good they have it and how bad I have it. All that does is just grind you into the problem. And
interesting.
so a huge piece of my work is helping people understand how to advocate for themselves. And
Mm,
for me, it's not so much that I should advocate for any one person in particular, but I'm advocating for healthy thinking patterns. I'm
mm.
advocating for managing emotions instead of following them blindly, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, and I'm advocating for critical thinking. I'm advocating for civil
Yes.
discourse.
Yes.
Like, I'm advocating for us to be able to be different and still be able to have a conversation. So I'm advocating for these things that used to be a little bit more standard than they are now.
Hmm.
Um, and the reason I'm doing that is because it actually helps people feel better. It helps them feel better about themselves. It helps them feel better out in the world. And I think that's really important.
That's fascinating. I mean, just thinking about charities, like that's where my mind went, is because there is a power imbalance there, isn't there? When you're dealing with
Sometimes,
charities and the people that they're helping.
yeah.
Because, I've read over the years that even the term help in itself creates a power imbalance. Because,
Sometimes, I mean, sometimes we all need help, right?
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
would,
I mean, in
the
terms of like support versus help, like just the semantics of it.
Yeah. Support's one thing, and help really, like, rescuing people should be an emergent situation. It should be
Mm,
small and emergent. Um, and then we want to give people the tools to teach them how to move forward in their own lives.
hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing in therapy, helping someone come in, especially somebody who comes in feeling really powerless
Hmm.
and feeling like they've got kicked around a lot by life. And a lot of times the folks who come and see me have indeed gotten kicked around a lot by life,
Literally,
right?
figuratively, metaphorically.
Yeah, I specialized for a long time in working with folks who had been sexually abused or who had
Mhm.
suffered a big trauma. And that is indeed difficult to move forward from. And at the same time, the more empowered you are to get into yourself and to figure out what your own strengths and weaknesses are, and then how you can work around your weaknesses and move forward with your strengths, all of a sudden people are blooming and it's really exciting to see.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I'm specifically thinking about arts nonprofits and
Mm,
the relationship between donors and the institution.
sure.
Because there's this often like I have a big nonprofit background when it comes to arts organizations,
Yep.
and there does seem to be a victim mentality within the nonprofit organizations sometimes of like we need the donors to save us, we need the corporate
Right.
sponsorships to save us, and like I've never thought about it that way before.
Well, it feels disempowering, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really exciting. I mean, this is one of the coolest things in the arts is that you've long had these patrons, right?
Yeah.
Help support in ways that maybe, your income wouldn't be there, if you didn't have somebody support. Like, for example, in the mental health field, for a long time, I worked in residential treatment. And
Mhm.
then I worked at Urban Peak, which is Denver, Colorado's only youth homeless shelter.
Mhm.
Um, and we would have donors and patrons, but the coolest donors and patrons were the ones who were interested in helping the kids learn the skills to move forward. Or
Mm.
they would come in and they'd be boots on the ground.
Mm.
They'd come in every second Wednesday and they would make lunch for the whole shelter. Like,
Mm.
it just made things a little bit more connected, and that I thought was a really cool way to do it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's more comprehensive support rather than just the financial
Sure,
obligation that's
sure.
created there.
Yeah.
So we've gotten a little bit off topic a bit, but has this been your vision that drives you forward throughout all of this? Like, what was that overarching vision of yours?
The overarching vision is helping people feel better in a world that's kind of complicated.
Mm.
And I think one of the mistakes that we've been making in recent years is we've been publishing a lot of information about, like, if you just think hard enough, you'll have a problem-free life, right?
Oh, yeah.
BS. I'm not sure about swearing on your podcast,
Yes,
so
absolutely. We
so be
accept all
hip.
swear words.
But that is a steaming pile of bull manure,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah,
we're going to have positives, negatives, and neutrals almost all the time,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And that's actually one of the really cool things is
yeah.
we're going to have positives, negatives, and neutrals almost all the time.
Mhm.
And so knowing that, again, this goes back to that empowerment word, not to overuse it, but it goes back to that empowerment word where if you feel more capable, you're actually going to enjoy life more, whether or not it's going well or poorly.
Mm.
Because sometimes it's going to go well. Sometimes it's going to go poorly. That's just a part of the gig, and that's true for everybody. There
Mhm.
isn't anybody out there who has a problem-free life, and anybody who tells you they do, they are lying.
Yeah,
It's
right.
fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's fascinating because you need the action to go along with the thoughts, right? The like
Yes.
positive intentions. And I think that's exactly what we were talking about with this donor support help cycle too, is that you need both the thoughts and prayers and the action, like the boots on the
Yeah.
ground. Like
Yeah.
you're saying, those are the most effective donors out there. Those are the most effective helpers out there. It's not just a blank check or blank thoughts and prayers. It's action, boots on the ground too.
Well, and most importantly, for yourself, actions actually are the thing that create and impact our thoughts and our feelings. We will
Hmm.
often be waiting around for a good feeling to arrive before we decide to do something, right? So that
Mm.
notion of take something as simple as, like, I'm not motivated to go to the gym tonight.
Sure.
Okay. Motivation isn't going to come until probably half the way through the workout. Motivation follows action. It doesn't precede action.
Mm.
When we're waiting to feel good or to feel confident or to feel motivated, all of those are emotions that come after action has already started. And then the thoughts that go along, right? The thought stream of, I can't do this, I'm not good enough at this, whatever, right? Like, all of that is very loud before you do something. But
Mm.
when you go and do something, it tends to quiet the thoughts down a little bit.
Mm.
Or if it doesn't quiet them down, it gives you some information about what you can do about it.
Mm. Yes. Yes.
Right?
I mean, it reminds me of one of my favorite phrases, which is imperfect action over perfect inaction.
Yes.
It's the same concept as like fail forward.
Yes. Yes.
Like you have to take that first step. You have to like, I think about this a lot in terms of creatives and like writers and artists. They feel like they have to like sit down and put the perfect words on paper the first try.
Mhm.
It's what happened to like
Nope.
sketching? What happened to playing around? What happened to
Yep.
experimenting, playing around with the media that you're working with so that you can then put the perfect words on paper when it comes down to it?
And more likely, you're going to put down words and then you're going to read them and then you're going to edit them a little bit, right? And so the power in getting started is so much more powerful than waiting around for you to feel just right to get started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've talked a little bit about lessons. Any other lessons that you've learned along the way?
Oh my gosh, there's lots. I think one of the lessons, and this is, and one of the things that I should say out loud is like any of the things I'm talking about, I work really hard to practice on myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
super critical to me. But I think one of the things that has been most freeing is this notion that everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and almost all strengths and weaknesses are actually skills, which means that they're learnable.
Mm.
Every now and again, we have stuff that just sort of is, right?
Mm.
Like I have incredibly poor hand-eye coordination. I'm left eye dominant and right hand dominant. It means that everything sort of comes and it doesn't,
Oh,
it doesn't land,
fascinating.
right? Makes me good at like archery,
Oh, yeah.
but not good at almost anything else.
Interesting.
Right. And so that's actually just a piece of reality.
Mm.
So, and at the same time, hand-eye coordination is a skill that you can develop. So, do I have Michael Jordan's hand-eye coordination? No, I have really bad. It's really bad. It's down here, right? But I can take it from down here to up here.
Mm-hmm.
Am I ever going to get to Michael Jordan?
No.
Nope. Not even, nope. I'm not even sure Michael Jordan is there anymore with himself, right?
No, I mean, Shaq is now a DJ, so.
It's a perfect example. But almost anything, even kind of the things that feel innate or that actually feel truly like, gosh, I just didn't get this.
Mm.
Okay, that might be true. And now, is there a way to build on that skill?
Mhm. Yeah, I think
So
about
that,
it in terms of like having a musical instrument. You might be gifted a piano, whether you
yes.
know how to use the piano or not
Yeah.
is another matter, but you'll probably be better at using a piano because you have a piano than someone without a piano.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is, when I think about my book, which is how you and I met, is through this podcast mixer and talking about books. But the subtitle of my book is Because You're Not Broken, but Life Gets Tricky Sometimes.
Mm.
So it's use your skills, not broken, right? And every now and again, maybe you are broken, right? Maybe like there's certainly been times, right?
Sure.
But if you are broken, let's not stay there.
Mm.
And most of the time, just because you have some weaknesses on the board doesn't mean you're broken at all. It just means you have some strengths and weaknesses, just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
And your life is tricky. So's mine. Okay. What do we have? What do we have to work with?
Yeah, yeah. You can still take action if you do feel broken. Like that was one of the aha moments that I've had in the last year when it comes to my own mental health. I was like, oh, I have to be fixed in order to receive, in order to make anything, in the world happen. And I was like, wait, I can do it with a broken leg still,
Yeah.
or whatever other metaphor you want to use.
Yeah. And sometimes I call weaknesses tendencies, right? Like
Mm,
most people have a tendency to either run anxious or run sad or run neutral or run hot tempered.
mm,
What's your tendency? And then how do you want to corral that tendency, right?
mm.
When does running hot tempered mean that you might be quick to take action? That's exciting. But when does running hot tempered mean that you might step on somebody else's feelings and maybe we want to check that a little bit, right?
Yeah,
So these tendencies are things where like, yeah, I have a tendency to run anxious. Okay. Instead of like my anxiety prevents me from doing anything.
absolutely. Like
No,
even
we're not
framing it as
all
a
meant.
habit, I think
Yeah.
is fantastic. Like I have a habit of anxiety. I have a habit of whatever, fill in the blank. Like that's a lot more tangible to
Yeah.
work with.
And it gives you a little bit of space, right? Between you and whatever the problem is.
I love that. Well, let's get practical. What tips, tools, or strategies have you used over the years to support yourself in this?
Oh my gosh. One of the most concrete and long-standing is that I work out 4 or 5 days a week. So exercise is nature's great mood stabilizer, and I lean on that a lot. And I lean on it deliberately, and I lean on it in a way that's systematic, which means I schedule it in. Um, Other concrete things that I do a lot of meditation, although interestingly, I do it badly. As defined by, I'm not one of those Zen, lovely people who's all like blissed out with their eyes closed, sitting on a cushion at 5:30 in the morning. At 5:30 in the morning, I'm asleep.
Yes, same.
And I am not blissed out when I wake up in the morning. I meditate at night.
Mm,
So, but the reason I meditate is it gives me some of that we were just talking about. It lets me know that there's me and then there's my thoughts, and I don't necessarily have to do anything about them. They can
mm,
just come up and go down and come up and go down, and I can just watch them from a little bit of a distance instead of following everything that they say.
mm-hmm.
Those
Yeah.
are two really concrete things that I do.
I think a lot of people have that misconception about meditation. It's like it's mind blank, complete
Nope.
silence, like, blissed out peace. But I actually have conversations with myself when I'm meditating. Like I will pick out all the different facets of my feelings, my thoughts, my beliefs, whatever I'm grappling with at that moment in time. I'll like personify them into
Uh-huh.
another Claire
Uh-huh.
and then have a conversation with them. I'm like, all right, what's going on, Claire? Like, let's sit down and talk about this. Like, what's going on here?
Oh my gosh, that sounds like so much fun.
Yeah. And they're like, sometimes they're different ages, sometimes I talk to like 7-year-old Claire, sometimes I talk
Oh,
to 22-year-old Claire. Like it's
yeah.
whatever I'm grappling with at the time. And I'm like, all right, what do you need? Like, what is behind this thing that you're
Yeah.
doing right now?
Yeah.
Because only then can we get past
Mhm.
this emotion, this thought, this belief, this obstacle, like
Right.
whatever it is like we have to actually like figure out what's behind it in order to actually do something about it. And so I have a lot of conversations with myself when I'm meditating.
This sounds like you use meditation really well.
I think so. It helps me. But I am also very systematic about my workout routine as well. That's something that I definitely have been not so great in up until more recent years.
Right.
I was always the kid that like bucked exercise, and I
Yeah.
was like, no, thank you. I'm gonna go read. Thanks.
Uh-huh.
But it's actually just benefits my life to have the systematic approach to it. And I never feel like going to the gym. Even after I work out, I'm like, I don't know why I do this, but it's honestly the neuroscience behind it that keeps me going.
Yep. One of my favorite things when I'm not feeling motivated, and I teach this to my clients all the time, is the questions of truth and relevance.
Mm,
So I have a workout class that happens on Wednesday nights. Let's say I'm not feeling very motivated to go. Tonight, maybe even.
sure.
And I can ask myself two questions. Number one, is that true? Is it true I don't really feel like going? Yep, that's true. Is that relevant?
Mm,
Now, if all of a sudden I was feeling like I was coming down with something, or I had to wake up
mm,
for a 4 a.m. flight or something like that, that would actually be relevant. And then
absolutely.
I might likely choose not to. But just feeling like, no, I don't really feel like going tonight, that's not
Hmm.
actually relevant. So I go.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah.
think a lot of times we get stuck on like, but I feel this way.
Yeah.
True story. But is that actually relevant to the action you're going to take next? It's surprising how often it isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about it in terms of future Claire. Like,
Oh,
Claire
how would
going
future
to
Claire
be,
feel?
is she going to be happy, relieved, energized if I do this thing?
Mhm.
Or is she going to be more exhausted if I do this
Right.
thing? Or is she going to be screwed if I do this
Yep.
thing?
Yep.
It's always a conversation that I have with future Claire because, like, sometimes I am coming down with a cold. And so future Claire will be at a worse state if I do go to the gym, right?
Right. Yep.
And so I always have that conversation of like, okay, is this actually going to benefit future Claire or am I screwing her over by doing this?
I think that's a great question.
Yeah.
And occasionally it's fun to actually push through. Like, I know future Carrie is not going to be happy, but this book is so good. I am going to stay up until 1 a.m.
Yeah.
reading.
Yeah. 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 Future Carrie will appreciate it. Maybe not immediate future, but long-term future.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, anything you want to add before we start wrapping up?
No, I think that, just I've sort of talked to you a lot about just my background philosophy, and that's the background of the book. And this notion of moving forward, understanding what's going on, and then moving forward is just over and over and over again. That is a very powerful place to operate from, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're able to get clear with what's really going on and then take a look at what your options are to move forward, oh my gosh, most of the time that's pretty helpful.
And like 5%'s better than 50, right?
Yes.
Like that's what I always tell myself. Like if I just cannot unload my entire dishwasher, like it's not going to happen. I will at least
Top
do
rack.
half of the top rack.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And it's amazing because my guess is 99% of the time when you start with half of the top rack, you get the whole dishwasher
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Yeah. I call it my 5 minute game. If I can do it for 5 minutes,
Uh-huh.
then
That's a real good game.
I'll give it 5 minutes. Like I'll put on a timer, put on a song for 5 minutes, whatever it is, and just try to do as much as I can in that 5 minutes. And usually I end up finishing it. It's
Yeah.
very rare that I get to the 5 minute mark and I'm like, all right, I'm quitting.
Right. Right.
That last cup, not gonna happen.
I'm leaving it there.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. Well, this is powerful stuff that we're talking about. An audience, we definitely encourage you to share your own thoughts and feelings and insights and stories with us as well. We'd love to know how visions like these have shaped you in your own lives. So special thanks to Carrie for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Claire. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy hump day. All right. So please comment, like, subscribe below. Check out Linktree/ClaireJoyance for all of my links. And then where can people find out more about you?
Selfhelponthego.com. It'll give you my email, my phone number, a link to my book, all the good things. Selfhelponthego.com. I'd love to chat.
Yeah, and I'll make sure those links are available in the descriptions and comments and stuff like that for easy access. And until next time, please remember that you all have extraordinary stories to share, and I'm rooting for you as you use them to change the world for the better. Take care, everyone.